everyone, and welcome into the next episode of Phoenix Breathwork, the podcast Breathe to Rise. I am so excited to introduce to you today a wonderful lady who I've known forever, but actually we've just realized we maybe have never actually met in person. But here we have Mel, known as the Breathgal. And Mel has trained as a breathwork practitioner and qualified with Inspirational Breathing, the Buteyko Method, Oxygen Advantage, YogaBody Teachers College, and the Shala London. She's also the co-director of community interest company School Breathe and a member of the International Breathwork Foundation. So, wow, what an intro, Mel. I'm so happy to have you here with all your wealth of experience. Welcome in. How are you?
Really well, and I'm so happy to be here, Jessie, and to see you. And yeah, it's funny just realizing we haven't actually met face to face, but yeah, I feel like I've known you for forever. And when I graduated, it was in 2018, and I remember looking for people on Instagram for inspiration and teachers, and you were one of those people, actually. I don't think I've shared that before. And I remember, looking at your Instagram page and being, really inspired by you, actually. So yeah, it's lovely when you read back kind of my journey. Also makes me feel, a little bit emotional, because it makes me look back, over the last 6 years, when you read out kind of what I've been doing and the journey that I've been on in the last 6 years. So yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for that introduction.
Oh, well, we're going to go into that a lot deeper now, Mel. And thank you for sharing that. That's always so lovely to hear, because I think, like you said, at that time, 6 years ago, reaching out for other breath workers, there was a few of us around, wasn't there?
Yeah.
We all knew each other at that point.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, it's a different landscape now, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So, welcome in. And I would love you just to start by sharing a little bit about your journey into breathwork, because I've introduced you as someone who's, qualified with a number of different schools. So you've got a range of knowledge around the breathwork practices. So highly experienced. But what is it that led you to breathwork? And, you haven't always done this. So where did your journey with breath start?
Yeah, and thank you for that, because I do laugh when, or rather other people laugh when I tell them all my previous jobs. I think you had a corporate background, actually, if I'm right, Jessie. And I had quite a background. I was a financial advisor. I was an events organizer. I did all these lots and lots of jobs, actually. And what I realized when I look back now is that I didn't operate very well in a highly stressful environment, which when I look back now, I was like, wow, what was I doing? And before going into it really deeply immediately, but I think when I look back over my life and my childhood and all of the things that have brought me to this point, I think I was creating a stressful environment because that's what I was used to. But I don't think I realized that until I retrained in breathwork and learned a lot. So yeah, I just wanted to share that. But what brought me to breathwork? Well, one of my college friends, I've known her since I was 16, is an amazing lady called Amy Hartley. And she is the founder of the community interest company School Breathe that I co-direct. And yes, lifelong friend. And she trained, back, I think, in the same era as you, Jessie. Am I right in saying
a little bit before me. She's actually been on the podcast as well a few episodes back.
Yes. And so she has been around for a while. And I remember being one of her, what's the word? When she was doing her training, she had to practice, and that was one of her practices with me. And I remember thinking, oh, that's interesting. I feel quite buzzy and out of body. I didn't really think much more of it at the time. And then she started doing retreats. And she's like, come on a retreat. I'm running with Rebecca Dennis, and some of your listeners may know Rebecca Dennis, who's written lots of books. She's been around at the same time, I think, as Amy. and a lovely lady that did yoga. I can't remember her name actually. Really lovely lady though, incredibly talented and experienced. And I thought, well, that sounds amazing. I'd love to do that. So I went on a retreat and it was breathing and some yoga, and yeah, wow. I think just huge wow. Up until that point, and I think I've slightly touched it, a difficult childhood and lots of things that have occurred in my life. And I've had various top-down therapies, so counseling and EMDR and lots of things. And I'd gotten to a point where I was like, yeah, I really understand cognitively everything that's happened to me, but I still feel it in my body, like really in my body. And I didn't really know what to do about it. I was like, I don't want to talk about problems anymore. I want to just feel differently. And I went to this retreat, and after a few breath sessions, and those breath sessions, for anyone not familiar with breathwork, was a conscious connected breathing, transformational breathing. And I just spent the entire weekend in floods of tears, and I was totally broken open. And I still remember now, because it's a long time ago, a lady that came up to me and she said, my mum's just passed away. And I'm not crying, and she was just asking me, because I guess I was this crying person in the corner all weekend. And, and I remember then I said to her then, maybe you're not ready. You're not ready to release. And that's really stuck with me, that memory, because I feel like I was really ready. I was ready to start releasing and unwinding. And yeah, that was a real pivotal moment for me that weekend. I didn't do anything about it for quite a few years afterwards, though, I hasten to add. But Amy introduced me to someone that she knew called Nicola Price. And I'd taken Nicola for a lift, because she lived near me, to this retreat. We got chatting and I found out that she ran Inspirational Breathing, which is the first school that I trained with. And I actually started being her administration assistant and doing her marketing and all of this type of thing. And I thought, oh, maybe I'll have a go at the foundation course and see if it's, for me. And yeah, so I did, and that was it in a nutshell. I did that foundation course, and I was even more blown open. I just couldn't quite believe, even more, even after that retreat, how much I knew it was going to change my life. And yeah, so that was that. And then I trained properly, officially, and yeah, and here I am today.
That's amazing, because I love that story. Thank you for sharing your journey. And you didn't go seeking the breath. You didn't, go thinking, oh, I'm going to be a breathing coach and this is what I'm going to do. It's like you went along with the experience and you were open to it. And you said something there about not wanting to talk or think about things. You wanted to feel it. And that really resonates, because that's what this practice is about. Getting back into your body, right? And so when you talk about feeling and crying for the whole retreat, I'm like, that's so powerful, because it takes courage and vulnerability to get to that point as well. Like you gave the example that the lady that's sharing, she can't cry or she's not crying, she's not there yet. It takes time. So do you feel like that was the right time for you? The breathwork called you or found you at the right time?
I do 100%. And I think I was resisting that kind of path. And I think, again, to do with my childhood, I was brought up by a single mum. She was vegetarian and crystals and you name it, actually,
Love
you name
that.
it, which was quite a long time ago. So yeah, I spent my childhood in health food stores and not being allowed to eat chocolate, and it was, when I look back, quite extreme. And I think there was a part of me, and I've learned as I've gone through the journey about all the different parts of me and healing those different parts of me. And but there was definitely a part of me that was digging their heels into finding a path that brought me back to myself. And it's one of the things that I've learned on my breath journey, that like healing those different parts, it's just so important. And your breath helps you become familiar with all of those different parts and their relationships. And I think I was definitely resisting, and going through all these, stressful, high-powered, jobs that were nothing to do with coming back to yourself, like quite the opposite. I didn't feel in my body at all. I was in my head and I was stressed and, not very well at all. So yeah, it's really funny. Again, when I look back at my journey, I just think, oh wow, I was just recreating stressful environment, digging my heels in. I'm not going to do anything like that. And when I let go of that, I was like, oh wow, like, I don't think I wasted time, because like someone said to me, it's taken you a long time, to, come to the breath. And I'm like, no, because it actually, that journey brought to me at the right time, like you just said, like, was at the right time. And I was like, yeah, I think I was just so fatigued at the masks that I was wearing, that that is definitely a mask of corporate Mel, and really that just wasn't me at all, and I don't regret all of those different jobs, because they've helped me run my own business, as you'll know, all the different roles that we hold when we work for ourselves. We've been so used to all of those different jobs that I've done to bring me to this point. And it's never too late to retrain. I think that's something else I say. I'm 50 next year, and I just know I'm going to be doing this till my last breath, literally. Just like it, it's such a satisfying and reassuring feeling, knowing that, like, finding my purpose, and the journey until this point to get to that. It was, it's been a ride, and I'm really grateful for all of those, past roles and learnings.
Amazing, amazing. And thank you so much for sharing the resistance along the way, because I think that's something that so many people could connect with. And, the corporate life and the stress, I can certainly resonate with that, keeping myself in that state without realizing what was going on. And the resistance side of it, because there's some people, you talk about finding your way back to self, looking within. And we think that we're doing that by looking externally for things. I need to go here. I need to do this course. I need to attend this. I need to do that. And actually, we're looking outside when all the answers are within. So it really takes time to get to that point, and it's honoring that journey. It's all the steps we need to take and honoring the resistance, because it's so great. You can look back and recognize it. And you're like, okay, I was resisting, but it's okay, because like, I truly believe, and I say this to my clients as well, that I think our bodies are so intelligent. We are so intelligent that they will give us what we can handle at that time. So, some people come for sessions and they want these big breakthroughs and whatever. And I'm like, you don't need that right now. Let's just, slowly get there. For some people, they do have those big releases and it's very quick and they know this is what I'm meant to be doing, or, have a big healing or whatever it might be. And for others, it takes their time. And there's another practitioner that I know, I'm going to get her on at some point as well, but she would go for breathing classes and attend sessions for 3 years before she decided she wanted to train in it, because she's like, I just need to get used to this, welcome it in, let it happen. And then she's like, no, okay, I want to train in this now. And I'm not saying everyone has to train in it, of course, but yeah, she was just taking her own time, as we all need to, right? So I love that. And actually, when you talk about resistance, it's almost like when you met Nicola as well, you were working with her for a while, supporting her rather than doing the breath, because you're close enough to it without doing it. So
it's funny, because, like, what you were just sharing about someone about, that 3 years, I remember looking at the reading list thinking, oh, I'd like to take a year to read the reading list, before I do anything about it. It's really interesting. But, again, I think that's just, that was my body. That's taking that time and being, 100% sure. But yeah, and it's nice. I do hear people, you do one class or one session and that's it, and then they want to do that and train. But yeah, I love that I love hearing that as well, that it's not just me that took, years to come to it and danced around it, bearing in mind one of my best friends was a, coach for like a decade before, it's like, now I get to work with her, which is just incredible, really.
Yeah, but that's the beauty of it. That's why, like, your journey is so unique to you. There's no set path, there's no set rules with it, right? And I think that's why I love getting practitioners on to share their journey, because it's like we all have our own reasons we've got to this point, and we all have things that the breath has helped us with and continues to help us with. And I mean, like, you've chosen now to train as a breathwork practitioner in different modalities of breathwork and share this gift wider. So what was the turning point for you when you're like, okay, I've been breathing, I'm feeling these things, like you said, breaking open and feeling lots of things? At what point was there a specific moment or experience where you're like, okay, I want to be a practitioner, I want to share this gift?
Yeah. So my foundation course with Inspirational Breathing with Nicola, I think it was day one,
Yeah.
first session, and I just felt at home in my body, which, yeah, some people might go, yeah, I know, I have feels. I feel like a lot of people don't know how that feels, just from my experience and, working with my clients. It's interesting. It's, again, my journey. I've got 3 autoimmune conditions. So I have endometriosis, psoriasis, which is quite severe, like head to toe, and also an underactive thyroid. And I think those conditions, now I've learned more, can be obviously genetic, but I think there's a lot in that suppressed and repressed emotion, which I've learned more about. And I remember that first session, and I would always be looking at myself negatively, can you see a mark on my skin, that type of thing. And, is my tummy hurting? All these different things that I would constantly be scanning in my body, which again, I think relates back to that environment of that constant stress, constantly. I was always scanning my body, always like, but not in a positive way, in a really negative way. And I remember being in that first session and I was breathing. And obviously I'd been to that retreat and I'd had a session with Amy, but I was laid there and I was breathing and I just felt so in touch and happy in my body, like to love, feel emotional telling you actually just to the possibility. Oh gosh, I do feel really emotional. It's like that possibility of loving myself, and being at home in my body. And I think I just, so much disassociation in my work life, and generally in life, to busy my mind, to not be in my body. And I was just breathing and just feeling so at home and so in love with myself, which sounds really odd, maybe. But I really did. I was like, look at you. Look, this is just, you've got a long journey ahead of you. I remember thinking that, but remember this feeling so embodied. I think there's that word that we often band around, but I did in that session. I felt so embodied, so secure and so safe. And I think I hadn't felt safe in my body. I hadn't felt safe to feel safe in my body. And I felt so ready. It was kind of like, okay, let's do this. And yeah, and then I just knew, and I drove home that day just knowing, it was like a deep knowing that this was just going to change and I was going to train, and wherever that took me. And even with all the things like, am I going to make enough money? Am I going to have any clients? And I remember Amy saying to me, she'll often say to me now, we're chatting and I'm like, oh, I'm so busy. And she says to me, no, do you remember when you used to say to me, am I going to have any clients? What if I don't have any clients? She always says that to me. It just makes me laugh because I do. I'm like, oh, I'm busy. but it's lovely. It's lovely when she says that because it makes us laugh. But yeah, I just knew. So yeah, that first session and that first foundation course that I did in my first training, it was just, yeah, huge unwinding, huge knowing, and excitement as well of what's to come. And again, like, when you introduced me and I sort of look back at all the different things and why I did them, it's just, yeah, I find that, yeah, really lovely to think about as well. I really do.
Yeah, that's so powerful. So powerful. Thank you for sharing all of that. I think you said, feeling like you could be in your body, embodied and loving your body. And I hear this a lot from people. And that was my experience. When I had my powerful breakthrough during my seminar, I felt like I dropped back into my body, and I often find it hard to describe it. So it's like, because we've been living in our heads, or like you said, overstimulated with stress, and our nervous system just doesn't know what it's doing. And so to have that feeling, and like you said, a deep knowing, it's like, it becomes clear, like,
yeah,
this is
total
more, yeah.
aha. Like, it's a real aha, right? I definitely was like, aha. It also just wanted to add that moment, that feeling did immediately dissipate. I just wanted to say, like when I got back in the car and I drove home and had that knowing, and then I was straight back in my head. I was like, oh, kids and dinner and the busyness of life. It just it did switch off, and I wanted to share that in that sort of context of everyday life, because I feel like generally people are like, oh, breath coaches go around meditating all day and living in a zen state. I think there's like possibly an impression of that, especially on social media, with people laying in hammocks on beaches and breathing, like. And I wanted to share, like, I'm a busy mum, run my own business. It's like, I am the listener. It's a work in progress always. Those medical conditions I share, it always brings me back to again, deep listening, deep unwinding, strengthening, every time I breathe, every time I do a practice. It's always a work in progress, that fits into that busy life as well. So I just wanted to share that, because I do feel like that. I think people think possibly, and I may just be guessing, that's obviously my impression of what I think people might think.
I would agree with you. I would agree with you. People think, oh, you're a breathwork practitioner. You must have your whole life put together and you can just cruise through life and everything's amazing and magical. And it certainly can be, but life is still lifing. It's just how we navigate it, right? How we manage it, and how, like, on that note, how do you find the breath supports you with this? Like you said, you're a busy mum, you run your business, and when we came on the call, you were sharing about school holidays, and how does the breath support you day to day with all of this?
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge question, Jessie. I love it. Yeah, where to start? The manic summer holidays. I think, lots of people will, resonate with that, and the juggle. And I think the first thing I want to share is that for me, having children was, pre having them, I was thinking, oh, if I've worked on my stuff, I'm, everything's good, and having kids was this big smack bang punch in the face of the biggest triggers ever. It was huge. And with the breath, it's helped me to reparent myself.
Wow.
As I've shared, they did share, but my father passed away when I was little, and my mum brought me up, and she was quite dysregulated and stressed, which led me to be also. So I had to work through kind of reparenting myself to then parent my children. And what I realized was my nervous system, my breath, obviously it holds your journey of your life and all your experiences, right? And I always would say, I never want to be like my mum, you know, that's shouting, and I was scared of her. All of these things. I'm not bringing up my children to be like that. I want them to be safe, secure, you know, happy, all of these things that I think most people want. What I realized was, with the journey of my breath and my nervous system was holding all of my experiences. And so when my children would trigger me, my nervous system automatically responded with the journey that I held within my body. So I was reacting. And I think I just really wanted to share that because it's been huge. That journey where I've worked in deeper breath work, in conscious connected breathing, and deeper dive breath work, that has helped me unwind my nervous system and unwind the stresses that were held and still are, but way softer, unwind the stresses held in my nervous system throughout my life so that I can take that reaction of my nervous system to take a minute and respond to my children. And it has felt huge. And, you know, again, it's a work in progress. You know, I've got a teenage girl now. The sass around that, I do try not to laugh internally because I see myself, but you know, the triggers are changing all the time, and you know, it's I'm not perfect. I am a work in progress, like I've shared, but you know, I feel like it's huge. Like any parent listening, you know, that you feel like you're triggered, you know, even young children, teenagers, whatever it is, you know, when you learn, you know, a breathing technique, for example, a box breathe, you know, a lovely box breathe, which is such a great exercise, right? Breathe in for 4, hold your breath for 4, exhale for 4, hold your breath for 4. Lovely, great technique for focus, you know, regulating your nervous system, you know, great to use in times of stress. But it's like a plaster, and plasters are really useful, right? Really useful in times, you know, it's brilliant. I love them. I love so many different techniques. But until you start that unwinding of your life's nervous system and those reactions, you'll keep using those plasters forever. And I found that so relevant with bringing up the children and my change from that reaction to that response. So just taking your question into kind of the summer holidays, you know, it's a lifesaver, genuinely. You know, I would react to the kids pre-breathwork and beat myself up about it. I was like, here I am acting the way that I didn't want to, you know, and now, you know, hand on heart, I don't, you know, I pat myself on the back, you know, like that reparenting I shared. I'm like, yeah, that is it. You know, I am the person I needed when I was younger. I remember sharing that actually on my Instagram page, or I think one of my friends sent it to me, and I was like, whoa, like I burst into tears because it really resonated so much. And yeah, you know, I've got a journey to come. I've only got one teen, another teen next year, so it will raise its game again. But yeah, the summer holidays it is more stressful, and juggling work, seeing clients, doing the workshops, looking after the kids. But breath has my back big time, proper lifesaver, you know, no regrets. It's just, my best mate. It's like having a best mate.
I love that. Breathwork has my back big time. That's what I'm going to title this episode, Mel. That's perfect. And what a beautiful way to describe and explain that, because I talk about often, I can resonate with a lot of you're saying about how you no longer react to situations and you will respond and understand what's going on. And the way you describe that and share that, it's a beautiful way to explain what's going on, because it's really powerful, and all of this is happening through the breath practice, right? And it's so powerful. And one thing to point out is you can have 1 session, 2 sessions and have an experience, but to have the transformation, you've got to stick with it. You've got to build that into your life. You've got to build that relationship with your breath. And that's how you can say breath work has my back, right?
Yeah.
You're saying it's my best mate.
100%, because, you're right. I think you mentioned it earlier about how a lot of people might be looking for a big cathartic experience, right? Which can be really useful. And I think it's why I started training in other breath schools, because I found that when I trained in conscious connected breathing to start with, and I started building up my client bank, and I started having a sense of sometimes people need softer experiences and different ways to access themselves, that possibly conscious connected breathing may have felt too much for them, possibly, which I know, I think possibly is controversial for people that, conscious connected breathing is the way or the only way, so possibly to that person that might be controversial. So this is just my personal opinion and my personal experience, that I had certain clients where after they left, in my body, in my intuition and my nervous system was like, feel like possibly I want to explore other avenues, that I could hold space for people in different ways. And I think that's where I started looking at, learning in different ways from other schools, and, looking for more knowledge around how I could do that. And I've forgotten the question.
No, but you are leading perfectly into what I was going to ask you to share about the different types of breath work that you are trained in. Because
great.
So it's a perfect segue into that, Mel. So you're on track. It's all good.
Okay, great. Carry on. Okay, great. So exactly that. So I started looking at other breath schools, and there's lots out there, even more out there now, but I had a science itch as well, where there was lots of questions that, like I felt like, and I do feel like there's so much magic in deep dive breath work. There's lots of people now doing scientific experiments to prove that conscious connected breath work, really can change your life, which obviously it can. But I've always felt like there's some magic, there's something there with that. But with that, I had this itch of like, but why, and why this and why that? And that's why I then went, to train with Patrick McEwen, who teaches the Buteyko Method, and then I trained to be an advanced oxygen advantage teacher as well, the yoga teacher college for pranayama and some long COVID training, just to really start looking at, other methods that might work for other people. And my business really evolved into those two branches now, where I'll generally see people that are looking for that, deeper dive connection to themselves and unwinding and unearthing, to people that now come directly for me because they have sleep apnea or asthma, or they want to enhance their performance with running. Or snorers. There's lots of snorers. We had a week of snorers a few weeks ago. It was really funny. They often get sent by their wives, though, which it always makes me laugh, because they're kind of, well, my wife sent me. And I'm like, how committed are you to doing these exercises? And they're like, well, not really, because, it doesn't bother me. It's quite interesting. But yeah, I have, they're quite almost separate branches of my business now. That's how things have evolved. And sometimes there'll be some crossover, between those two branches. But that's how everything kind of developed, actually. And I'm always looking at, how I can, work and add more to my offering. I trained in EFT and Reiki as well. And I love incorporating, when I feel like it's relevant for a particular client, because I think, we all learn in different ways. Different things appeal to us. And yeah, so I just love always looking at, adding something else, adding value to what I can offer my clients. And yeah, so yeah, that's kind of like, yeah, in a nutshell, where I got to really on the kind of different training schedules and things.
That's great. I'm so pleased that you mentioned about the EFT and Reiki as well, because we were sharing offline. It's like it's still a really powerful part of your work and what you do, and that what makes you unique. Because even though you have trained in particular modalities, you as a practitioner in yourself, you're going to bring your whole self, your energy, your experience, your training to your clients. So they're going to get a gift of all of that in the session, right? So I love that you've also got that EFT and that Reiki that complements everything that you do.
Mm.
So just on that, just how do you work with people now? If people were interested in working with you, do you do mostly groups, one-to-ones? And if you could just share a little bit about how you
Yeah.
work with people now.
Yeah, so cool. Thank you. So yeah, so I offer one-to-one, face-to-face. We're recording now. This is my breathing studio, that went up in COVID actually, because I thought I might murder my husband. We were sharing a working space, like administrative space, that is, not breathing space. And he does work in the corporate world, and he was very loudly mansplaining very loudly for hours. And I had my headphones in listening to music, relaxing music, and I could feel like my triggers of like, oh gosh, I just can't quite cope with this. And yeah, anyway, we were planning on building a studio, so that just came a bit earlier, and I absolutely adore my space. So yeah, I'm in Stenning, West Sussex, which is about 20 minutes from Brighton. And this is where I'll see a lot of my one-to-one clients. And then I offer online as well now, which is obviously thanks to COVID, one of those silver linings. And I have clients in different countries, which is incredible. I have a client in Australia, and she'll go to bed. And I'm in the, while I see her, and she waves off and she goes to sleep, which is just such a privilege to be able to access and offer in different countries. And then, yeah, and then I offer groups. I'd offer an online conscious connected group on a monthly basis. And then I offer locally group sessions as well, where I'll offer functional breathing, as well as conscious connected breathing. And yeah, what else? And then, yes, and then there's School Breathe as well, obviously, where we're in primary schools in the UK. But we just recently, I say recently, about a year ago, we launched a training program, because we had lots of people coming to us saying, I don't work in a school, but I really want to teach children breath work. Can I do your course? And our course was to teach teachers or to teach children. And we're like, well, we don't have anything. But we had so many people ask us, yeah, but I want to teach kids. Or, I run a yoga studio, or I work with children after school. How can I do your course? So we've put together a course now, and it's an online self-paced course. And we offer that now to anyone that wants to teach children, because as you'll know as well, that there's nuances around teaching children breath work. And we don't teach children conscious connected breath work. I just wanted to share that if anyone is familiar with all the different types of breath work. But with School Breathe, we really teach them how to be calm, how to move through an emotion, how to focus, everything that I wish that I had been taught at school. I think, how incredible would it be if every single child was taught how to manage an emotion? I don't know about you, Jessie, but I just, I look back to my school days, it's like, shut up, sit still, don't fidget, all of these things,
100%.
right?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I'll just shut down the words I wanted to express. So, oh, my diaphragm is tight. I'll lean over a desk. My diaphragm is then compacted. I can't fidget. So I'll create tension in my body because I'm not allowed to fidget, tension in my diaphragm, and not breathing well. And every single child that I've said, oh, can you demonstrate a deep breath for me? Every single child,
Yeah.
huge upper chest, vertical breath, and we lose that ability so early. In Jay Shetty's book, Think Like a Monk, he explained that when he was training to be a monk, he saw the 4-year-old monks being taught how to breathe. And I was like, yes, because that is the age. We lose that ability, that expansive horizontal breath that we're born with. We just forget. So so I'm going on about school breathing now, but I'm so passionate that if we get into every primary school and we teach every child to inhale in that expansive way, be able to move through anger in the playground, to be able to move through that sadness, and to regulate and to be able to focus, with the rise of ADHD and all of these things that we see in the paper, mind statistics, it's increasing. There's a part of me that feels like, with breath education, with learning about the breath, with learning how to regulate, that this may have an impact, even more so on those children, and so I've gone on a bit about school breathing now, but really,
I love it.
So passionate.
Of
I think
course.
it'd be incredible. But yeah.
I'm with you. And this is what this platform's for as well, because I'm also like one of the coaches in School Breathe and so passionate. I'm always talking about it because I ditto everything you just said. If we'd had access to this in school, if all children had access to this at a young age, I say this, breath work, learning how to breathe properly and manage and regulate emotions, it's life-changing to have access to that, because then we just build on it and it sets our foundations in a very different way. So yeah, you can go on about it as much as you want, Mel, because I think it's so great what you're doing. I mean, and you're already working with schools all across the country, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
we are. And we've got the course that I just mentioned, we started that a year ago, and we had this huge uptake of people around the world as well. It was like another moment. So we hold monthly meetings for everybody on the course. We held our first meeting, and there were people like logging in, from like Hawaii and all these different countries. And I was just like, oh, this is a moment, because they're all training to teach children how to breathe, and that ripple effect is just like, I get goosebumps. I got goosebumps then. I got them now.
Too. Oh,
it's like,
wow.
Whoa, the more people come to it, and I know there's been this great surge of interest in breathwork, especially since COVID, which is great. But, obviously also with the fast track courses, I do that part of it as well. But I feel like the more people are switched onto it, the word gets out there more, and the impact that it can have. We had a Radio 4 go into one of our School Breathe schools, and I think her quote was something like, "I've just walked into the UK's quietest classroom." So it's that ripple, and having that meeting when all of these people were, joining us from different parts of the world was just like, a mind-blowing moment. Actually, it felt incredibly privileged to be part of School Breathe and to keep going with getting the word out there.
You are having such a powerful and positive impact. So yes, please keep going, and we are here to support you with this. So, if anyone's interested, please reach out to Mel to know more about that as well. And just to reiterate what she said, is it's not teaching how to teach children conscious connected breath. That has to be done with a conscious connected breath practitioner. But it's more functional breathing, isn't it?
Exactly. Yes, exactly that. Yeah, because we often get asked that, what type of breath work, and that, all scientifically backed breathing exercises and techniques, for a calmer classroom, really, ultimately.
Yeah. I love it. So I'll be sharing all of your details in the notes, but you can contact Mel or any of the team through the School Breathe website as well. So many wonderful things there, Mel. So many wonderful things. Out of interest, what do you have a daily practice of your own? So, we've talked about breath work and how it supports you and the different types of modalities that you're trained in and support with. Do you have a daily practice of your own?
Do, and it's a juicy one, actually. Again, Jess, it's a juicy question because I'm asked it a lot, like lots of clients, like, what do you do? Like, and that's been quite transitional, what I practice. And I think the first sort of year and a half of my journey, I would practice an open mouth, conscious connected breath. And I would practice between 10 minutes and an hour, depending on my day, and not every day, so a few times a week. That would be my daily practice, which was incredible, actually, really incredible. And I still do practice conscious connected breathing, but not every day. So with all the different learning and all the different trainings that I've done, I've kind of understood how important our functional breath is. And so what I mean by functional breath is how we breathe on a day-to-day basis. So when you look at your day-to-day breath, it can be broken down into kind of different branches. So for example, the cadence of your breath. So how fast you're breathing. You can look at the biomechanics of your breath. So where you're breathing. So how well your diaphragm is helping you breathe. How full the breath is. So that's kind of the biomechanics. And then also your biochemistry of the breath. I won't go into too much detail about that, but the biochemistry of the breath is quite a large pillar of functional breathing. And so leading into the answer to the question, I work on a day-to-day basis, depending on what I'm working on at the time. So it changes. So at the moment, I am working on some biochemistry of my breath. So, and again, I won't go into too much detail. I think you'll know what I'm talking about. So a lot of my daily practices are based around improving the biochemistry of my breath. So in short, for anyone listening, it's to do with how much oxygen is getting to your cells. If you're breathing in a short, shallow upper chest way, you won't be fully accessing 100% of the oxygen to your cells. It will be quite limited. So I'm working on increasing that, increasing more oxygen to my cells for better health. It can make, quite a big difference to you. So at the moment, that's what I'm working on. So kind of breath retention exercises whilst I'm walking. I do a lot of my breathing exercises on my daily walk. I do an hour walk every day with my dog. So I use that hour every day without fail to work on something. So biochemistry is something I'm working on at the moment.
Amazing.
But I say that my breath will often come into play at different times of the day. So before I see a client, I will always take 5 minutes to ground myself in my body in a lovely kind of parasympathetic way, which I'm going to share with you. Actually, I thought it'd be really nice to share what I do.
You're one step ahead of me, because I was going to ask you to share some guided breath work with us. I love this, Mel. You're just so in flow today.
Well, it just seemed relevant, actually. I was like, as we're talking, because it's so simple. And like I said, there's always a moment, with the, I mentioned I've shared, with parenting and with triggers. I'll often use a plaster, a very useful plaster, if I'm being triggered by one of the children. I take myself off, or I do it when I'm standing with them, which is, by the way, what's so great about breath work. Once you've been taught it, it is your tool in your tool belt that you can grab at any time, and nobody knows you're doing it. I think that's the thing. Someone will say, "Oh, I haven't got time for any practice," and I'm like, "Well, do you have a shower? Do you walk? Do you sit at a desk? All of these things. Do you fall asleep? Do you wake up? There's all of these things that most of us do, right? And you can do, your breathing practice, maybe not a deep dive, but you could do something every day you can't afford to not do it, quite frankly. That's how I feel. So going into, what I do to feel grounded in my body, to feel calm, often rushing around doing admin, and then a client is coming here or something online, I will just do a really soft, gentle practice. So yeah, I'll share that with you now because it's just this simple and we could all do it. So
yeah, please.
we're going to be breathing through the nose. Lovely parasympathetic practice. For anyone not knowing what parasympathetic part of the nervous system is, it's just that calm part of your nervous system, really often called the rest and digest, because we're in rest and digest after eating. So if you're listening, if you're not sitting down, just sitting down and placing your feet firmly on the ground, just to start grounding yourself and just checking your posture. And our posture has so much effect on the way that we breathe. So just checking your posture, spine nice and tall. And you could imagine a piece of string just pulling up at the back of the head. And your ears should be just above the shoulders or in line with the shoulders, really. And all you're going to do is let your breath breathe you just initially. So bringing your attention to your breath. Just noticing the breath entering the nostrils, reaching the back of the throat. And we're not judging the breath here at all. We're just noticing, just witnessing. And you can introduce something that I really like as well, is setting an intention. And it doesn't have to be anything big, anything life-changing. It can be as well if you like, but I love also doing it on a day-to-day basis. And it can be an area of your life that you'd like to see change in, or a way that you'd rather be. Or it could just be to feel calm and to feel relaxed. So just thinking in your mind's eye as your breath is breathing you, what would that be for you? And if you can't think of anything, I always love gratitude. Gratitude for my breath. Gratitude to my body. And now we're just going to breathe our breath. So we're going to consciously now change our breath and slow our breath down all through the nose. And we're going to take long, slow, full inhales and full exhales. So you're just consciously breathing now. Long, slow inhales and long, slow exhales. And holding your intention in your mind's eye. And then letting that go. And then just noticing any sensations in the body. Those could be physical sensations. There could be thoughts. There could be busyness. And just including that into your experience. Any interruptions, including that into your experience. And any emotions that might arise from holding your intention in your mind's eye. And just continuing now with that long, slow, full, deep breath. And when you're ready, just coming to a point of completion. You're ready, just bringing yourself back to your state. Giving a little stretch. That's good.
Yeah, that was lovely. Thank you so much. Yeah, it was really nice to do the body scan with that as well. So thank you, and set an intention. Mine was joy. That came through so strongly. Yeah, just to be more joyful and have more fun. Like that keeps coming up a lot for me because I think I get pulled into work and responsibility and everything. So
love that, Jessie, because I think it's so relevant as well in the context of deeper dive breath work. I think a lot of people, think about, the shadow work and working on ourselves and working through our big T trauma or our little T traumas, and unearthing and, everything that is fantastic and incredible about breath work, but there's so much joy to be accessed, right? When I shared that, sit still, be quiet at school, but how many times were you biting your lip because you weren't allowed to giggle, right?
Yeah.
And, or in a work environment where, it's really not appropriate to laugh, and there is so much of that suppressed joy. It's just like bubbling, right?
I feel like that's our natural state, to be joyful, right?
Yep.
But it's like, when do we lose it? When do we disconnect from it? It's like, bring that back. So yeah,
I love that. I absolutely love that. I do. I just I feel that as well in my work. I just think, oh wow, there's just so much joy to be unearthed, and I love your intention, Jessica. It's so lovely. And yeah, mine was just gratitude, actually. I just had deep gratitude. But yeah, having me on your podcast and sharing my journey. And to the breath, like I shared, so much gratitude to our breath, our first thing, the last thing that we do, and how important that is really to understand that that superpower that we have is yeah.
Yeah, and it's been absolutely wonderful having you on, Mel. Honestly, I've loved this conversation so much. I feel like I keep talking to you, for hours about all of this. There's so many more things I'd like to deep dive into. That'll be another podcast. I'll have to have you on again, Mel. And because we've never had a conversation like this, I feel like there's so many, like I can resonate with so much of your journey. I have a corporate background before I found breath work. I lost my father when I was young. I've recently been diagnosed with severe endometriosis, so I'm managing that. And it's like, there's so many connections we have with each other, and also, connections in general. Like, we're all similar. We're all in the same boat. We're not different from each other. And we're all just on our own journeys, so we can come together to support and share. And I just think it's so powerful hearing everyone's own experience, because it makes you feel like, not just me then, like you said earlier, not just me.
Totally. And we all breathe the same breath, right? I think I read some statistic. Is it 5 days for our breath to get from one side of the earth to the other,
Yeah.
and that we've all breathed the same breath at some point.
Yeah.
And I just think about that, for our ancestors and our legacy of breath. I just find that sort of stuff mind blowing too. So even though we haven't met, we breathe the same breath.
Yeah, so we're so connected. Oh, I've loved this, Mel. I've loved this so much. Just before we finish then, where can people contact you? So I'll share it in the notes, but just to share, are you at website, Instagram? How can people reach out and connect with you?
Yeah, thanks, Jessie. And really, on everything as Breathgal, G-A-L. I always say this. I'm like, but I feel like breath middle-aged woman now
Oh, no.
instead of breath gal. I had someone say to me, "Oh, you're not a gal, are you?" I was like, "Yeah, thanks." Like I feel like I'm a gal, but yeah. Anyway, it's breath gal, and I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Threads. Yeah, you name it. Website's breathgal.com. So yeah, hopefully nice and easy. Like track me down if you're interested or have any questions. And yeah, and School Breathe as well. Instagram is there too. So yeah, thank you, Jessie.
Oh, thank you, Mel. That was a beautiful little guided breathe you did with us there as well. So thank you for having us. Thank you for being here with us.
Anytime.
You've got me so zen now. That's what it is. I'm just like now. I will be sharing all of your details in the show notes. Thank you all for listening and for joining us. Please reach out, connect with Mel. Let us know if anything resonated. If you have any questions, we are here. And Mel, thank you again. I will love to connect with you again. We'll get you back on at some point, and hopefully I'll get to see you for an actual real life hug at some point
Yeah,
too.
that'd be nice. That'd be lovely. Really lovely. Thanks so much for having me, Jessie. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening today. If anything resonated, then let us know below. And if you've enjoyed what you've heard, then please remember to like, share and subscribe so we can keep reaching more people to spread the endless benefits and transformations we can experience through breathwork. I'll see you in the next episode.